Welcome to Type C Tech Reviews. Today we're going to be doing a review of the Hisense U6H. But if at any point during the video you want to check out this exact same monitor, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links, but let's jump into it. Alright, but before getting into the specifics, we need to talk about where this fits in with the lineup and the U6G. So the U6G is the 2021 model year, the U6H is the newer 2022 model year TV, just recently released, just actually a week or two ago. So the U6H is basically the same TV as the U6G, but the U6H has a few more features that are actually pretty cool. Now, additionally, there is a U6HF and just a U6H. The U6HF has the Fire Stick OS built in, where the U6H uses Google TV as the operating system, the smart TV part of it. But everything about the U6HF and the U6H are exactly the same, just the operating system is different. Now let's get to the review. All right, now firstly, the one that you're gonna see in this video is the U6HF 50-inch. But let's go over the sizes. So first you have 50-inch, 55-inch, 65-inch, and then 75-inch. Now, for some reason, the Fire version of this, the U6HF, is only available in the 50-inch as of right now, and the rest of those, the 55, the 65, and the 75 are all Google TV. All right, and the panel is what Hisense calls a ULED or a ULED. Now, that's their own marketing term, and that kind of means that it has a few different things, but basically the actual panel type is a VA or vertical alignment panel. These are very, very popular amongst TVs because it gives you that higher contrast ratio or deeper blacks when then compared to an IPS-based TV, an IPS panel-based TV. Now, the blacks are significantly better than an IPS. They're not quite like what an OLED would be. And as well as this has a quantum dot layer inside of it, which helps a lot with the color gamut. And that is awesome. All right, but now let's move on to the smart system, the smart OS, and the remote. Okay, now firstly, the Fire TV works exactly like you would expect from a Fire Stick. So if you've had any experience with a Fire Stick previously, this is basically the exact same thing. The only difference here is that the settings, when you click the settings button on the remote, that's gonna bring up Hisense's own kind of menu system on the side. That's true amongst the Google TV as well as the Fire TV. Their menu system is quite good. It works well. It's very easy to read. Overall, it gets a full pass. It's great. But then the Fire TV settings are all the same as you would see on a Fire TV stick. Now, everything is really fast and snappy and quick to respond. There's not a lot of lagging. The only time there is lagging, this is something that only bothered me a little bit, is after about 24 hours. We usually watch movies every night, and we use this as our main movie watching TV every single night. So if we only watched a movie at night and then we waited until the next day, when we turned it on, there was a little bit of lag. For about 5 seconds, there would be a little bit of a lag with the system. But then after that, totally fluid, didn't really have any lagging problems or anything like that. So when you turn the TV on after it's been kind of resting a while, you will get some amount of lag. Now, I can't talk about the Google TV because I don't have that, but I would be willing to bet it's pretty much the same story. You'll probably have a lag right in the beginning and then not. If you don't want to lag, higher end TVs usually don't have that. Like my U8G, that one I don't think has like any lag at all, but you're also paying a lot more for that. All right, now the remote. So the Fire TV remote is basically a Fire Stick remote. It takes 2 AAA batteries. All of the buttons, except for that wheel, which is kind of the arrow keys, are all rubberized, and that feels more higher quality than cheaper, just plasticky ones. So they are rubberized, and that is nice. That remote also does have the Amazon Assistant built in so you can hold it, and that works incredibly well. It's incredibly responsive, it hears you every time, and it's very, very fast. Faster than I've used on other TVs before, so that is actually really good. Then moving over to the Google TV, on my U8G, my remote I think is the exact same one, but just a little bit of a different colorway. As you can see here, I'll show B-roll and pictures. But from my experience with that remote, I'm not sure if they're exactly the same or not, but that remote was quite nice. It also used 2 AAA batteries, nice rubberized feel. And on that one specifically for my U8G, not sure if this is exactly the same, but mine actually backlights when I click a button. So in total darkness, you will be able to see the stuff. I'm not sure if that's the same. If one of you guys has one of these TVs with the Google TV, please comment that below and I'll pin it up there at the top of the comment section. But yeah, overall, definitely not a cheapy remote, but it's also not a high-end remote, so it's kind of right there in the middle. All right, but now brightness and HDR. This is where things get really good, and this sets itself apart from the competition. Now, this is advertised at 600 nits of brightness, which is a lot of brightness for this price point. After testing, however, this reached up to 700 nits of brightness. However, that's not full screen brightness, and because of the brightness constantly changing, the brightness limiter as well as local dimming, I can't give you a specific readout that's always gonna be what the TV's brightness is because it's constantly changing. However, with a 100% window on full brightness, this will get about 450 nits. So if you have any experience and kind of understand nits and how much that actually is, 450 would probably be what I would say that's what you should expect. That is a really good brightness. Overall, you pair that with the color gamut, and this gives you a very vibrant and beautiful display. Much better than I was expecting after ordering this. Now, the brightness is great for both nighttime and daytime use. So even if you wanna put this, let's say in your living room, and you wanna watch it in your living room and it's fairly bright, this will be good for both daytime and nighttime watching, which is awesome. There are TVs that are basically specifically made just for nighttime use, and I actually have one of those. That's great. Not personally my favorite. I like the versatility. As for HDR, it's good, it's not amazing, but obviously we do expect that from this price point. The peak brightness doesn't really get bright enough to really bring the highlights out of the image. That's the thing that I noticed right away. You will get that high dynamic range. However, again, those brights are not gonna be as bright or even as bright as the peak brightness of SDR content. So if you're like me, if you're gaming or watching movies and you just want it really, really bright, I'm crazy about brightness, then I typically kept it in SDR. However, if you are into HDR, this does also have Dolby Vision, so you can game in Dolby Vision or in HDR, really whatever you want. However, the HDR is not incredible, and most of the time I kept this in SDR. All right, moving on to the black levels and local dimming. Firstly, the contrast ratio is great. Not great like OLED great, but great for VA panels. It hits over a 5,000 to 1 contrast ratio. Now, turning local dimming on versus off does make a difference. Is it a substantial difference? No, but if you're on a black screen and you switch it from local dimming to off, like high local dimming to off, it's definitely a noticeable difference. And with watching movies, I did notice when I turned local dimming off to on, I did notice that it was a better experience with local dimming on. Now, if you're used to budget TVs or older TVs, this is gonna be amazing to you. The black levels are really, really good. And we're at a point in time where TVs are so good at such a low price point, it's actually mind-boggling. Monitors are not quite there yet, but TVs absolutely are. If you just go a few years back, this would have been one of the most premium TVs out there. But just in a few years, this is now budget, which is crazy. And it's great for the consumer. All right, now for the local dimming, there are only 32 zones on the 50-inch, and going up in size, it goes all the way up to only 48 zones. So it's not a whole lot of local dimming zones. However, it is implemented very well for not having very many zones. Now, while actually watching movies, I didn't notice the local dimming in a bad way. I didn't notice it, oh, it's like overly bright there and you can kind of see. No, I didn't really notice that during movies, which is a good thing. However, if you do like an isolated test, you will obviously be able to see the different zones because there's not a ton, like 1,000 or 300 zones. There's only 32 and then going up to 48. Now, as far as black uniformity, this does an excellent job. And talking about blooming, when having white text on a black background, there is blooming, but a very, very small amount. Way less blooming than I was kind of expecting due to the price point as well as the local dimming zones and everything like that, but it is actually very, very good. So if blooming is kind of an issue there, I wouldn't worry about it. Now, colors, this is quite impressive here, and this is one of the things that does set it apart from its competition. Now, this covers almost the entire DCI-P3 color space, which is important for HDR because a lot of content is optimized for the DCI-P3 color space in HDR, which is great. Now, this is incredibly good at this price point. This has almost the same color coverage as the much more expensive Hisense U8G, which is what we actually use previously, right before I started reviewing this one and switching it over to my main monitor. So that's pretty awesome. And a lot of that, again, is due to that quantum dot layer in the panel. All right, now we're gonna get a little bit into the gaming performance. There's timestamps below if you wanna skip ahead if you're not into the gaming performance, but let's talk about it. Refresh rate and variable refresh rate. So first of all, this hits 60 hertz. We're not getting 120 hertz, obviously, at this price point. We don't expect that. But don't click away if you have an Xbox Series X or a Series S or a PS5. This is still a really good gaming TV. Now, one of my favorite upgrades from the U6G to the U6H is that it adds variable refresh rate. That is huge because this TV was missing that from the U6G, which was already a really good gaming TV, but giving this TV variable refresh rate makes it an excellent gaming experience. During testing with an Xbox Series X, there was no noticeable screen tearing at all, which is fantastic. And that's because of the variable refresh rate. And we're gonna move on to input lag now. This is exceptionally low input lag, even when compared to high-end TVs. We're not just comparing this to budget TVs. Even comparing with high-end TVs, this has a very low input lag. It also has an auto low latency game mode, obviously, which is great. And Hisense typically has a track record in the last few years of doing that really, really well. So as far as gaming, if you do want a really great gaming TV, but you don't want 120 hertz, or you don't want to spend the extra money to have 120 hertz, which is probably the more realistic thing there, this is an awesome gaming experience, especially for the price. Really, the only things you're lacking here is full 120 hertz because you're getting incredibly low input lag like very high-end TVs, and you're getting variable refresh rate, which is awesome. All right, now for internal speakers. These are dual 10-watt speakers, and I'm just gonna say this right away, they get incredibly loud, like too loud. Like if you had them on even in a large room, they would like blow your eardrums out. They're really, really, really loud. At about 25% to 30%, that's like the loudest I would ever want them. So that kind of gives you an idea of how actually loud they are. They are very loud. Now that being said, what about clarity? That's probably more important than the actual volume. These are very trebly. If you're an audiophile, you're not gonna like this, but you're not gonna like any internal speakers. This does not have any internal subwoofer or anything like that, so it's just two 10-watt tweeters. So the trebles are quite clear. If you do want this and just want to use the internal speakers for watching movies, if you're worried about understanding voices, something like that, this will be fine. You won't have any problem understanding someone's voice. However, you're not gonna have any bass. There's no bass at all, which is to be expected with internal speakers without any subwoofer at all. So I would say if you want a really great cinematic experience, pair this with at least two bookshelf speakers, and that would probably be what I recommend to have a great cinematic experience, but still on a budget. If you don't already have a speaker system, get yourself some either $100 or around $100 bookshelf speakers with subs inside of them and tweeters, and that would probably give you a pretty great cinematic experience for a very low price point. All right, now for the ports. This has 4 HDMI 2.0s with one of them having eARC. Now I know what you're gonna say, no HDMI 2.1. You don't need it for 4K at 60 hertz. There obviously is no 120 hertz, so you don't need HDMI 2.1. It then has one USB Type A with 5 watts of charging or power, an AV in, your cable port, Ethernet, optical audio out, and then a 3.5mm audio out. Now all the HDMIs do have enough bandwidth for 4K, 60 hertz, Dolby Vision, HDR, whatever you want. So it has that for that. You don't need HDMI 2.1. There's a lot of confusion about that. So no, all these ports will be good enough to game on consoles, whatever you want. You obviously just won't get 120 hertz because there isn't 120 hertz in the panel. All right, moving on to stand and build quality. It's actually pretty good, better than expected. The panel itself is fairly minimal. It has a nice chin along the bottom, and overall it's fairly thin. If it was just the panel itself, this could definitely pass as a much more expensive TV. I think the overall design of the panel was done very, very well. But then the legs, they don't look that great. Those are the thing that really make it look quite budget. And in my opinion, if those were out of there and if you wall mounted this and Vesa mounted it, it would look as good as very high-end TVs. And that's something that could be really cool because personally, I don't like the legs at all, but obviously Vesa mounting it is not too hard at all, so that's definitely an option. Now, I do wanna note the legs work well, they're incredibly stable, and they do have nice cable management built into them, so that is nice. I just don't like the looks of them. All right, but talk about Vesa mounting. What is the Vesa compatibility? Well, for the 50, 55 and 65 inch, it is 300 millimeter by 200 millimeter. For the 75 inch, it is 400 millimeter by 300 millimeter. All right, now for the subpixel layout. If you don't know what this means, just skip ahead. It is blue, green, red. Now, this is great for watching movies and games and everything like that, but if you are thinking about hooking your PC up to it, you can definitely play games from your PC and absolutely nothing wrong. But if you're gonna hook it up and use this as like a second monitor, as your main monitor, the desktop is gonna have some issues like text clarity and such like that, because Windows is not optimized for a blue, green, red layout. For that, you're really gonna want an RGB red, green, blue layout. Okay, but now one of the most important sections, if not the most important section, price and value. Now this is fairly difficult because these are always on sale and I don't really know the real price because they're all on sale all the time, and that's just how TVs are. But at the time of filming, the 75 inch is just under 800 bucks and the 50 inch is just around 400 bucks. So that kind of gives you an idea of the price. Obviously, TVs seem to fluctuate way more than other tech out there. Now for that price, you're getting a very above average brightness and color coverage, deep blacks with good but not great local dimming, but you're also getting great gaming performance and you're getting variable refresh rate. Overall, I'd say the value here is fantastic and you're getting really one of the best budget TVs available right now. So overall, do I recommend this? Absolutely. In this price point, this is an easy TV to recommend to everyone because of how it balances what to make cheaper and what to add money to. This is a great all-around TV, whether you just like watching movies, playing games, or doing a little bit of both. Again, if you want to check it out, there are Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. If you're in the market for a budget TV that does not feel budget, this is a great option, and Hisense is really bringing it with their TVs recently. But yeah, this is Type-C Tech Reviews. If you guys want to see the unboxing and what comes in the box, that video will be right over here. You can check that out right now. Click it right there, show you what's in the box, show you the setup process and everything like that. But yes, this is Type-C Tech Reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next video.